So in this video, I will tell you the history behind every jet in War Thunder and getting a kill with each of them. But there's one problem. I don't own every jet yet, so this series will be divided in parts and will be finished once I own every jet. But in this video, I will tell you about over 30 of them. Enjoy! We'll start with the Soviets. Beginning with the Yak-15P at the BR of 6.3. This was one of the Soviet Union's first ever fighters. It is also the second lightest jet fighter ever produced. The Yak-15 was also one of two jets that successfully underwent power plant conversion. The other successful plane was this one. This is the Saab 21RA and RB at the BR of 6.7. The 21R features insane maneuverability for a jet and a whopping 13 guns. Did you know that? The first time it took off, the engineers miscalculated the needed runway length, so the plane crashed into a fence before getting airborne. Fun fact, the gun pod under the belly is called padan, which means the toad in Swedish. In real life, this plane had JATO rockets to help out with takeoff. Next up, the SK-60B. The SK-60 was built as a trainer and light attack aircraft. It served the Air Force for almost 60 years before getting retired this summer. It is one of 3 jets in War Thunder featuring reverse thrust. There were several different versions built. For example, the SK-60C, which is a reconnaissance model, and the SK-60D, a 4-seater, and even one with AIM-9Ls and Mavericks. Expect a video about that one. This plane was also used by Austria. Enough yapping about the SK-60. Next up is the Japanese Kika at 7.0. The Kika was a project launched after testing the Messerschmitt 262. It's actually not a fighter, as War Thunder suggests. It's actually an anti-ship and ground attack aircraft. Did you know that the Kika was actually designed with foldable wings? This meant that the Japanese could hide it in caves. Now to the other side of the Pacific Ocean, this is the F-80 Shooting Star at 7.0, the first successful turbojet plane of the United States. This plane technically served the U.S. Air Force from 1943 all the way to 1997, but has other planes with the same airframe as the F-80. This is the MiG-9 at 7.3. This is MiG's first ever jet fighter. In real life, it had a critical error in its design. When firing its main armaments, the gas from the weapons got sucked into the engine, making it flame out. The MiG-9 was then quite quickly replaced by the MiG-15. Now to the infamous Messerschmitt Me-262 at BR 7.3. The Me-262 was the reason for this famous recording when it flew past American B-17 bombers in World War II.
What was that? What the hell was that? It went by like we were standing still.
It was the first successful jet fighter ever. But despite being successful, it still had a lot of critical issues. For example, some of the internals of the engines melted, ruining the engines after just a few missions. A very expensive problem. Now, to one of the most adorable planes in War Thunder, the Saab 29 Tunnan at 7.7. The name Tunnan translates to the barrel. A quite fitting name, don't you think? The Tunnan also held the world record for the world's fastest plane in 1954. The Tunnan also participated in peace missions and saw combat in Congo while flying for the United Nations. Now it's time for the 2 Vampires I own, both at 8.0. The Vampire also holds a speed record. There isn't much difference between the two. The Swedish Vampire was called J28 Vampyr, and the Finnish was known as Vamppi. Finland actually only bought 6 Vampires because of political and economical issues. Fun fact, the Vampire was actually capable of both landing and taking off from an aircraft carrier. Next up is the MiG-15 at 8.0. This is one of the most produced fighter jets ever, with over 12,000 units produced. A very successful aircraft. It has served in 37 air forces and is still used by North Korea. It was also used by Finland as a trainer. I think the Swedish tech tree should have it in its tech tree to give Finland more planes. A not-so-fun fact about the MiG-15 is that it shot down 2 Swedish planes, a DC-3 and a PBY Catalina, both de-weaponized. This was during the Cold War over international waters. 8 people perished. The next aircraft is the Saab 105G at 8.3. It's basically an export variant of the previously mentioned SK-60, but it features some large upgrades being ability to carry AIM-9Bs, having much more powerful engines, being outfitted with ballistic computers and laser equipment, as well as better avionics. Next up, the F-86 F-30 Sabre at 8.3. The Sabre was used by 30 different air forces across the world. Even Yugoslavia used it. This very unit is from Japan. The last country to retire it was Bolivia in 1994. Almost 10,000 units were built. The Sabre is easily one of the most successful fighter jets in history. Now the Japanese Ki-200 at 8.7. This is one of very few rocket-powered aircraft in Warthunder. It's based on the Mi-163, and a total of 7 units were built. There are 2 main factors to why this plane was a disaster. The first one being that it was really dangerous and would randomly explode mid-air. The second reason is the range, since it only had about 5.5 minutes of powered flight. Even though it had many drawbacks, it offered excellent maneuverability, which we also can see in War Thunder. J-34 is next, the Hawker Hunter at 9.0. Sweden bought several Hunters from the UK to act as a placeholder together with the Tunnan for the J-35 Draken that still was under development. A fun fact about the Hunter in the Swedish service is that most of them actually had replica guns on board during the first service year instead of real ones. Now for the A-32 at the same BR. This is the attack version of the Lansen. This was the first ever Swedish plane that officially broke the sound barrier. It also had remarkable radar technologies for its time, while also being the first Swedish plane with a built-in radar. They actually built a new propeller plane to test out Lansen's wing configuration, as you can see in this picture. The attack version was also a part of the investigation of Chernobyl by taking air measurements. In-game, the attack Lansen can carry a whopping 928 chaff countermeasures. Next up, the Tunnan J-29F at 9.0. This is the same plane as mentioned before, but now with an afterburner and the capability of carrying air-to-air missiles. In real life, the plane had JATO rockets to take off, and some versions had radar warning receivers, but not in game, sadly. A fun fact about the Tunnan is that it only needed 1 tool to repair, so you could tear down the whole plane with only 1 tool. Now for the F-86 F-40. This is also the same aircraft as the previously mentioned Sabre, but now at a BR of 9.0 with the ability to carry AIM-9B air-to-air missiles. It's time for the Lansen again, but now its BR is at 9.3. It's now also capable of carrying 4 air-to-air missiles and an upgraded engine giving it much better performance. But sadly, no countermeasures this time. Now we will visit Japan once again. This is the Mitsubishi T2 at 9.7, or the Japanese Jaguar as I like to call it, since it was inspired by it. It's an advanced trainer plane capable of carrying AIM-9J missiles and an insane 20mm rotary cannon. This is also one of few trainer planes with the capability of going supersonic. An interesting aircraft to say the least. In-game, we can also see its fighter successor, the F-1 at 10.3. This plane was actually specialized for air-to-surface or anti-maritime capabilities, but since anti-ship weapons are rare in War Thunder, we sadly rarely see them in-game. That was a true Japanese kill, right? Now it's time for the Dorito at 10.3. the J-35 Draken, meaning dragon or kite. This was the first ever supersonic plane in Western Europe to enter military service. It's also the inventor of the first ever Cobra maneuver. It served in Sweden, Austria, Finland, and Denmark, and had a top speed of over Mach 2. In real life, later versions could carry radar-guided missiles. Please, Gaijin? Fun fact, some of the Draken pilots were called Dragon Knights. Next up, the F-104J starfighter at 10.3. This is also an insanely fast aircraft with capabilities to go Mach 2, just like the Draken. Did you know that the F-104 had so aerodynamic wings that they were razor sharp? Well, they were. So when the plane was stationary, they needed to cover the wings so the flight technicians wouldn't hurt themselves. This plane was also designed by the legendary Kelly Johnson, the same person that designed the famous SR-71 Blackbird as well as the U-2. Fun fact? The F-104 could actually carry nuclear weapons. Let's get back to Sweden with 3 new aircraft on the list, the Viggens, at 10.7, 11.0, and 11.3. This was, at its time, the most advanced jet fighter in the world. The plane was built to land and take off on roads, giving it some really good STOL capabilities. It was also outfitted with reverse thrust, giving it insane stopping capabilities without using a drag chute. It also had insane dogfighting and general performance. For example, the maximum takeoff weight was 20,000 kilos, or 44,092 pounds for my imperial viewers. It also had a top speed of Mach 2.1. Later variants could also use the AIM-120 AMRAAM. I have a video about that version. Anyways, this was an amazing jet, but was officially taken out of service in 2007. At 11.3, we find another legendary jet, the MiG-21. With over 11,000 produced and 56 different former or current operators, this is a certified legend. It's still used even though it's 65 years old. It has seen multiple conflicts, for example, the Vietnam War and the Yugoslav War. It's a small but capable and fast aircraft, reaching a top speed of around Mach 2. Now, to another small, fast, and capable aircraft. It's light and very maneuverable, making the airframe very good in close combat and dogfights. Some of the F-5s could actually carry AMRAAMs in real life. Fun fact, this plane is actually a movie star. It actually had a role in Top Gun as the fictional MiG-28, and it could actually use nuclear weapons in real life. Another legendary American aircraft is the F-4 Phantom at 11.3. This was the first ever plane with titanium in its airframe. This flying brick is an absolute beast in the right hands, with an ability to carry 8 missiles, both radar and infrared guided, and the ability to carry 4 20mm rotary cannons and a bunch of explosives. It sure offers a great punch in the enemy's fuselage, or really anything you can throw at it. It can destroy with ease. It was most famously used in the Vietnam War as a fighter bomber, and about 5,000 were ever built. Next up is the Soviet equivalent to the F-14 Tomcat at 11.7, the MiG-23. It's mostly known for its famous variable sweep wings. It has an impressive top speed of Mach 2.4. It also had a very modern radar with some automatic features, which were advanced for its time. Around 5,000 were ever built, and around 22 remain airworthy today. Now let's get back to Sweden. This is the latest Viggen in-game at 12.0. It features upgraded systems, including the ability to carry AIM-9Ls instead of the 9J. A later version of the JA-37D, called the JA-37DI, could carry AMRAAMs. I have a video about that plane if you're interested. Now let's take a look at the F-4 again, but now at 12.3. This time it has a much better radar with a pulse Doppler mode, giving in much better radar performance. This combined with its upgraded RADAR missiles makes it a true missile carrier. Now it's time for the beloved JAS-39 Gripen A at 13-0. The Gripen is a multi-role plane with capabilities we will talk about soon. This plane was, just like the Viggen, designed with STOL capabilities. This means that the JAS-39 can take off, land, and rearm on regular roads that doesn't even need to be highways. Fun fact, the name JAS-39 Gripen stands for three things. JAS stands for jacked, which means fighting, attack, which means believe it or not, attack, and spaining, which means reconnaissance. The 39 is Saab's designation. Gripen means Griffon, a fictional hybrid animal with a lion, eagle body. The Gripen is one of the cheapest fighter jets in the world to operate. Now let's talk about another beloved aircraft, the F-15, which also operates at the same battle rating. This truly legendary plane boasts an impressive kill-to-death ratio of 101-0, meaning it has successfully shot down 101 enemy aircraft without ever being shot down itself. It also has an insane thrust-to-weight ratio. This means that it literally doesn't need wings to fly. One time it collided with an A-4 Skyhawk, but successfully landed even though it was missing one of its wings. The F-15 was the American reaction to the MiG-25 Foxbat, a legendary aircraft to say the least. Now for the last aircraft in this video, the F-16 at 13.0. But before I tell you about it, I want to thank you for 5,000 followers. It means so much to me. And thanks for watching this long. This video was about 2,500 words long, about 70 gigabytes of footage, and many hours of recording, editing, researching, and writing. So I really appreciate that you watched this long. Now, back to the F-16. The F-16 Fighting Falcon is used by 25 different air forces and now also by Ukraine. This very F-16 in the video is actually representing one from Ukraine. Pretty cool camo, don't you think? Anyways, the F-16 uses the same kind of system as the Gripen, the fly-by-wire system. This offers better controls, especially at high speed. The plane also offers great visibility from the cockpit. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Only about 3% of my viewers actually subscribes, so if you're not subscribed, please do. And again, thanks for 5,000 followers. And sorry for the subtitles being a bit wonky. Once you apply them, you can't change them individually.